Welcome to Off the Couch, where psychology meets everyday life. I'm Dr. Greg Cason, here with Brian Gomez,
Happy
producer, and also here with DJ Sammy G on the board.
Hey.
You can't see her, but she is, you can hear her, and that's what really matters. So today on Off the Couch, this week in psychology, we're going to be talking about who's smarter. Is it early birds or night owls? Also, how employers accidentally attract narcissists, and is Taylor Swift is good for your body. But before we do that, let's talk about the heat. It is really, really hot. Is it hot? It's hot in New York, isn't it, Sammy?
I have no idea. I mean, my parents have been saying that it's pretty hot, but typically I would say late July gets decently warm.
I mean, unbelievable. Well, it is so damn hot. I mean, heat actually affects the mind. We're having a heat wave heading our way again soon, the western part of the United States. I believe it's happening when? Starting tomorrow or something, or today? I mean, it's been so hot.
I thought we were already experiencing it.
Well, places like El Paso have been having continual over 100-degree days, and Phoenix and all of these towns where heat has become really a problem. But we're going to talk about how heat affects the mind. The rising temperatures are actually a growing concern for mental health. So this was an article that was in the Monitor on Psychology. I put a link in the YouTube. Summer 2024 is expected to be a record-breaking in terms of heat, and there is an urgent need for policy and infrastructure changes to address the heat impacts. So let's talk about record heat and its consequences. 2023 was actually the hottest year on record globally. But 2024 is slated to be even hotter. So it could surpass the 1.5 degrees centigrade above the pre-industrial era. And I know that sounds like it's kind of wonky, but that's sort of the global warming level. Like, we don't want it to get 1.5 degrees hotter overall. So physical consequences, you guys all know, like heat stroke, are well known, and psychological impacts are becoming clearer. Have either of you guys ever had heat stroke?
No, but we've been told how to prevent it, like in the military when we did certain training exercises, and it was really hot. We were told we would have to stop at certain points throughout the day and like cool ourselves down with like tubs of ice and put like our hands, elbows, and everything in there. So we kind of understood the danger of it because nobody wants to die.
Yeah, I've had heat exhaustion, which is like a step way below heat stroke, because heat stroke is actually life-threatening. It's pretty serious. But heat exhaustion, I mean, when you get it, it's basically you start getting dizzy, very hot. You can't think straight. Everything just becomes a blur, and you basically know I have to get to cool immediately. But heat actually causes some psychological impacts as well. Irritability, impulsivity, and trouble concentrating are super well known. Vulnerable populations are particularly at risk, and vulnerable populations are just exactly what you think. They're the young people, very, very young, and the very, very old, as well as people who are sick or disabled, and people who just live in parts of the country that they don't have a lot of air conditioning. Do you know what parts those are? Oddly enough, it's generally the north, the northeast, the Midwest, where they don't have as much air conditioning as the South. And here in California, I mean, a lot of people, nobody where I grew up had air conditioning. I grew up in a beach town, so you didn't really need it. But now it's becoming the case that you need it more and more. And that's really a concern. Also, people who are on psychotropic medications are more sensitive to heat. Psychotropic medications are the mental health medications. It's everything but benzodiazepines. For the guys that benzodiazepines are like Valium, Xanax, what else? Ativan, those types of things. Those are benzodiazepines, but all the other psychotropic medications can be very problematic when it comes to heat. So the key findings are mental health related emergencies. They found emergency visits actually have increased by 8% on the hottest days. That's quite a bit. That's nearly 10%. Older adults and those with substance abuse disorders are heavily affected. In fact, people who tend to use substances more and tend to overindulge in substances more. And remember, impulsivity, which can lead to using substances, can actually be much higher. Also, seasonal mood problems can be linked to summer heat. You guys have all heard of seasonal affective disorder, haven't you?
Yes.
Well, seasonal affective disorder is typically a depression that's associated with shorter days, less light out. I mean, just different things. Colder, you have to stay inside more. So people feel more depressed. And there may be some certain genetic as well as environmental causes. I mean, the environmental as well as just adaptive or evolutionary causes. So it seems that we know about seasonal affective disorder, when I used to live in Houston, I used to say all the time, I think seasonal affective disorder should apply to summer too, because I remember when summer would come, and Houston was one of the hottest places in the United States. I mean, just really hot. It was often there were days where it was 100 degrees and 100% humidity. And I would have to just run and hide, in our little apartment with the window air conditioner as much as I could. And I used to always think, I would feel depressed during the summertime. And what was the reason for that? Is it because I was staying in more? I thought it was the heat, because the heat was so oppressive. It's just like you couldn't get away from it. It was constantly affecting you. You slept a lot less. You couldn't eat. It was just really a hard time. You tended to lose weight, those types of things. And now they're starting to call that seasonal depression or summer-related depression, but it really should just also fall into a summer seasonal affective disorder. That's what researchers are pointing to. There are certain behavioral and cognitive changes. Heat's linked to increase in crime rates and aggressive behavior. Is that a surprise?
No, I mean, you said, we're prone to get irritable with the heat, so it makes sense that more altercations occur in the heat.
More altercations occur and more aggressive behavior. People tend to, again, impulsive behavior. They tend to be out more. They tend to sleep less, so they're more irritable in general. And then they can be triggered, and then they can also misinterpret things. Remember, their cognitions are not working quite as well, and we'll talk about that. Cognitive performance declines actually in higher temperatures. There was even one study done, and they looked at people. They gave them like simple math tests, and they also gave them a Stroop test. For those in mental health know, the Stroop is a test of frontal lobe function, and that's like the area part of your brain. The frontal lobe is helping with inhibition. It's helping you hold things back, and it's also helping you make decisions, good decisions. And when it's not working, you make bad decisions. So we see that performance decline in warmer temperature. And they did an interesting study where they took people, I think a bunch of college students, and then they split them up, and they had half kind of living conditions for 12 days where they didn't have air conditioning and 12 where they did, and they had them go about their day. So the kind of most interesting thing to me about that was that the bottom line is that the people who didn't have air conditioning had a much poorer scoring on those tests. Their frontal lobe wasn't working as well. They couldn't add and subtract as easily, etc. It was just simply sleeping with air conditioning that made the difference.
Wow, that's insane.
I thought that was.
And I'm sure it's affecting a lot of people that are on the streets too, that are unhoused and have mental health issues already with the heat just taking over like that.
No, it's a very, very good point. I think the people who are living in tents or have otherwise don't have a house or some kind of inside dwelling to be in are going to suffer the very, very most of all. But it's also just low income neighborhoods. We can't just say it's people who don't have a house, people who do have a house, but they don't have air conditioning, or they live in an area where there's not a lot of trees or a lot of canopy. Those people are going to suffer more from urban heat. Also, people who live in more dense urban areas like New York City, they're going to be less likely to have air conditioning, especially when they live in a very hot building. They could perhaps have a window air conditioner, but I will tell you, I know people who've paid, huge amounts of money for these apartments in New York, and they maybe can get like a window unit. I mean, it's unbelievable.
That's New York for you. And it's supposed to feel like very swampy, right, during the summer?
It can, yes, it can. Absolutely. They have a lot of humidity there. The good news is there are towns like Miami and Los Angeles that are taking a lot of steps to try to mitigate these problems. But, these major cities are doing it. Well, some other cities are really kind of falling down on the job. Also, we don't talk about this a lot. The heat exacerbates issues like droughts and wildfires. It impacts air quality, and pollution has been linked to mental health problems like depression and anxiety. I think I didn't even know that when I happened to look at this article. That was kind of the most. They didn't teach us that in school, and I think that was a very interesting thing. So it can affect you on so many levels. Plus, we're seeing a lot of mass migrations due to climate change that pose further risks for mental health. So it's just continually looking at different things. I found this article. This was done in the UK. They surveyed 2,000 people in London, and these were the top 10 ways they dealt with heat in the summertime. And if you know London, they also don't have a lot of air conditioning. I mean, they do in some places, but just not everywhere. I mean, these very old cities with these very old buildings, they don't always have good air conditioning. I used to laugh in New York City when I lived there that the air conditioning was awful. Like anywhere I went, it always seemed like half working. And then when I would go to Houston, every public building I walked in, it was sub-zero. I mean, I've never experienced air conditioning that worked as well as it did in that city. So that's a city that's sort of built for air conditioning. They're absolutely amazing. But the top 10 ways people stay cool, and maybe you guys, you can give me, if you don't hear yours, let me know. But sleeping on top of the blankets, I think that's a common one. Keeping all the curtains closed. That's a big one in the South when I was there. Sitting in front of a fan. I still do that. Sleeping naked. I don't know why you would have to have a heat wave to do it. Change to lighter blankets. Of course, opening up the windows, even if you sleep on the ground floor. So that's like applying to people in the cities, because you would never open up your windows on the ground floor. But people, when it's summer, they're like, screw it. Taking a cold shower just before bed. So that's good. It's lowering the body temperature. Putting a wet flannel on your head. Leaving your hair wet while walking around the house. And drinking a glass of iced water before going to bed. Do either of you have any kind of tips about handling the heat in the summertime?
No. I mean, they kind of went over what I usually do. I even got Cora, my dog, a little kiddie pool. Oh. So I, like, after we go to the dog park, she gets in it, and it's like the easiest way to cool her down as fast as I can. Taking a shower definitely works. You can feel the fresh air right after when you get out of the shower. I feel like they covered most of them. Oh, well, good.
Those Londoners, they know what to do. But I just basically, I lived in a house that didn't have air conditioning, and I used to use one of those stand-up air conditioners, and it was loud and didn't do a lot. So I will say that was kind of a poor choice. The window units seemed to work better. And I just had one of those mini splits put in. That's like where they're like single room air conditioners that are attached to the outside. And I will say, and I experienced that when I went to a gym, and I was like, what is that? And they said, oh, that's one of those. They were in Japan. This was a long time ago. They were in Japan, and they experienced this air conditioning system, and the owner of the gym wanted to get that kind of air conditioning system. And I'm like, I would love to have that in my house. And sure enough, I have that now, but now they're very, very common and they're very popular. So most people know what mini splits are now. That was a few years back. But yeah, now I love to turn that thing on. I just have it in the bedrooms, and that's where you need it. So this is an urgent public health issue, and we need to pay attention to it as a mental health issue. So a lot needs to be done. We need to plant more trees. We need to pay attention to the impacts of heat, and we need to kind of understand that heat is causing a bigger problem, both of our mental and physical health, than perhaps we give it credit for. So we all need to be prepared.
And we all need to drink a lot of water. I don't think people drink enough water in general, but when it's hot, I feel like you should definitely hydrate more than you ever do.
Very good point, Brian. Very good point. So, okay, you guys, who's smarter? Is it early birds or night owls? What do you think? We all think early birds get the worm. Isn't that what you always hear? Or isn't that what Ben Franklin said or someone like that?
I don't know who said that, but I mean, you would think so, but I mean, I think it honestly just depends on the person, you know.
Well, Brian, you may be into it, but you may be a little bit more understanding than the saying says. Recent studies have challenged long-held beliefs that early risers are more productive and more mentally sharp. So they did a huge study. This is another British study. So this is Imperial College of London. They looked at data from 26,000 people using the extensive UK Biobank. And this is, again, I want to just always applaud. They have a national health system in England, and they're able to do these kind of massive studies that can tell us really important information. And this is actually very helpful information. We'll talk about why. They analyzed UK adults who had completed a number of cognitive tests, as well as describing themselves as a morning person or an evening person. There were also in-between people. I think I'm kind of an in-between person. I used to be a night owl, but I've become more of an in-between person. I've never been an early bird. What are you?
I'm an early bird.
You're an early bird. You're an early bird.
Like, yeah, and I don't know if it was because I was so used to that routine in the military, but I kept it.
Well, I will have to say I really struggled. I used to have to get up at, I forget, like 5:30 in the morning or something to go to school, and I remember torture. It was like torture every day. What about you, DJ Sammy G? Early bird, evening a night owl, or are you an in-betweener?
Definitely not a night owl. I'm like asleep by 10:30 or like 11 every night. I can't sleep. But, like, I wake up early, but I'm not productive early. I'd say, like, 10 a.m. to, like, 3 p.m. is my most productive hours.
Oh, good for you. I'm like a noon to 6 person, believe it or not. And, in fact, when I see clients, I typically see them at noon or later because I think my mind works the very best. I will see clients a little bit earlier, and I usually have to arrange my day in such a way that I can see them. But no, in general, I try to see people when I'm peak cognitive hours because I tend to veer a little bit later. So it's good to know who you are so you can structure your day in such a way. So they gave these people these tests, and this is part of huge studies. So people did all these different things, and they asked people whether morning or evening or in between when they felt most alert and productive. And they also compared that to the test. They published in the British Medical Journal, Public Health, and the research findings were that night owls tended to perform better in tasks requiring cognitive flexibility and creative thinking. This was exciting to me. You guys probably don't care about cognitive flexibility, but this is sort of the person who can they're not so rigidly held on to ideas. They can think about things in different, more creative ways, and the creative thinking goes right along with it. And so these are the people who tend to be a little bit more flexible with things, tend to see like the four corners of something. They exhibit peak mental sharpness in the evening, contrary to the tradition of the morning person being the most productive time. So it's basically, it doesn't matter to them that the morning is most productive. Like you, DJ Sammy G, I'm not saying you can't function, but I have to say I'm a pretty poor functioner before 10 o'clock. I can get up at 6, but it will be 4 hours of moving pretty slow, doing nothing, and not accomplishing a lot except breakfast.
Yeah.
Maybe shower and whatnot. What? You're shocked.
I'm like, by noon, I want to be done with my day already completely. Yeah. I get up like at 4:45 is like my sweet spot, ideally.
A.M.?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's a whole little routine with the dog and getting ready for the gym before work. And yeah.
Well, you should give me a call because sometimes I wake up at 4 in the morning or 5 in the morning and can't go back to sleep.
Also, my mind is like going super crazy fast in the morning to get all these ideas. I usually write stuff down in the morning that I'm like, oh, I need to do this, and this. So I work well in the morning.
It does seem like night owls have a different circadian rhythm compared to early birds, and their biological clocks are naturally set to a later schedule, aligning their peak alertness with evening hours. These are I always thought too, if I had you ever see those advertisements? You guys probably don't. These are the old advertisements. They used to say morning shift, swing shift, overnights or whatever. When I would look in the paper to try to find a job, and I used to always think a swing shift sounds really cool. It was I think swing shift was maybe from 2 p.m. or to 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. or something like that. And I was like, oh, that sounds great. Because I could definitely work till 10 and be fine. So who knows? Night owls often develop a greater adaptability due to societal pressures to conform. We have to conform to you early birders. And this adaptability can enhance our problem-solving skills and resilience. Well, good for us, huh? I guess it pays to be the minority in the bunch. The implications, the findings suggest a need to reconsider workplace and educational schedules. Because I remember I was in school and I had to take a bus. So first, just FYI, when I was a kid, I had to wake up at god-awful 5:30 in the morning or something. It was like torture. And then I would have to get ready and I think I had to be at the bus stop at 7 o'clock. So whatever it was around 7. And then I'd take the bus to school, and the bus was an hour, 45 minutes essentially, but I would always have to be there early for it to pick you up, because if you missed the bus, you missed the bus. It was a school bus. So I'd have to walk to the bus stop, which was, it was about 5 blocks away. And then I'd wait there. And then I walked to another school. That was the insult of it. I used to think all these kids who live around here, they get to go to this school, and I had to go to a different school. But anyway, long story short. And then I was bused to another school, 45 minutes. And then you would have to then wait for school to start because buses get there early. So it was just like multi-hours about the whole thing, and then the process repeated on the way home. So I was just always in a bus, it seemed like. But we need to reconsider workplace and educational schedules. This is especially true for teenagers. We give teenagers a lot of grief. I remember my high school, they would have these really early, I think we started at 7:45, and I could never, that was first period, I could never sign up for first period. I always had to sign up for second period to start school. We had 2nd through 9th or 10th period. I can't remember what it was. I went to a very big school. Flexibility in times could allow night owls to maximize their potential, leading to increased productivity and innovation. And embracing natural variations in sleep patterns can benefit individuals and organizations alike. How exciting!
That'd be interesting to be able to go into school later. Would it be evening school?
I would love it. Believe me, when I was in graduate school, I dug that we would have classes at sometimes they'd start at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, or every now and then you'd have, a late class that would start at 5. I love that. That was the coolest.
I always hated evening stuff. I always want to go outside and play in the sun as soon as I can.
Same. I want to be done while there's still light in the day for me to enjoy.
Yes.
But I also could never get up before the sun is up.
Well, there you go, you guys. We're three different schedules here, but we'll all kind of live on our own plane. But it's good to know that at least, we used to think night owls were really at a disadvantage. And in fact, they seem to be at somewhat of an advantage. And that was just randomly given to us by research rather than so-called, quote, common sense. If you remember a study we did a while back, was that common sense is not so common and it actually can be quite wrong. And this was research telling us a completely different answer than Ben Franklin originally told us. So the next story is how employers accidentally attract narcissists. Do you think you work in a job that has a lot of narcissists in it? Well, it may be your employer, and it may be the problem and they're looking for certain keywords that attract narcissists in job postings or when they're going for recruiters. And recruiters tend to be the biggest culprits in this. Recruiters are these people who basically try to match employees with jobs, in these big jobs especially. So this is a study and research done by University of Maryland, University of South Carolina, and University of Mississippi. And they understood that when you hire a narcissist, they can be a real problem for an organization. They can do more illegal things. They can really rub other employees the wrong way. So if you have to work in a team, it can be very problematic, or it can really hurt customers. They can impress customers at first, but then it ends up hurting customer relationships later. So this is a concern in general, is narcissist, and it's something to really pay attention to. They focus, though, on the accounting field because the accounting field has the most immediate negative impact of narcissists and rule benders. Did I say that narcissists tend to break the rules a lot more? This was actually a study published in Management Science. And the key terms they put in job postings that they found that were attracted narcissists were the following words: ambitious, thinks outside the box, communicates persuasively, thinks strategically. And these words tend to attract rule benders rather than rule followers. Would you describe yourself as ambitious, think outside of the box, communicate persuasively, and think strategically?
Sometimes.
I know. I was like, when you were saying that, I was like, oh, snaps. Okay, that's me.
Well, there you go. Are you a rule bender or a rule follower?
If everybody's following the rules, I don't have an issue. But if not everybody's following the rules, I do have an issue.
Well, narcissists tend to not follow the rules. But there you go. So the key findings: narcissists are more attractive to the rule bender language in job postings. Professional recruiters use rule bender language more for innovative and high growth industries. Remember Facebook? Remember Move Fast and Break Things? That is pretty much narcissists. So it made me wonder, oh my goodness, I wonder if a lot of narcissists work at Facebook. Just a curiosity. I don't know if that's in their job posting, but it's certainly their motto.
I mean, I also went through a recruiter once, so and I did get hired.
You did?
Company, for Fendi.
Oh, that's right. You worked for Fendi.
And you remember how much I hated that job.
But the recruiter sounded wonderful.
Oh, yeah,
I talked to her on the phone.
Super nice.
Yeah. They called for a job reference,
yeah.
and I thought that she was lovely. And they really liked you in the audition, whatever that was.
I hit it out of the park with that.
Yeah. So there you go. You know.
Am I a narcissist?
Well, I mean, we can talk about that later. We'll give you a little test.
Okay.
Such language increases the chances of attracting unethical applicants. And that would be very much a problem with accounting, because just think about this with accounting. These are the people that handle the numbers. You can't fudge the numbers, because that's something you can point to, and that's something that if you screw it up, the IRS comes after you, auditors come after you, the board of directors come after you, the customer can find out or get screwed up. I mean, I remember working at an organization once, and our accountant, and I'm not kidding, our accountant stole the money from the retirement savings. He, instead of investing it, he made up fake statements to give to the person in charge, and he pocketed the money.
Yeah, I mean, with work now at the law firm, we're witnessing that happening in an accounting department, and then also with another firm I used to work at, their accounting also double dipped and raised their salary. So
yikes.
Yeah, and the numbers don't lie. That's the thing that
the numbers don't lie. The numbers don't lie. The financial statement can lie. That's what Bernie Madoff did. If you guys don't know Bernie Madoff, you guys know Bernie Madoff, right? He was the investor who like it was a Ponzi scheme, and saying basically a Ponzi scheme is where they say they kind of make it too good to be true, and then it's kind of like a pyramid scheme in some ways. They get people to give them lots of money, and then they're like, look at these amazing investments, and then more people give money, and if anyone wants to pull money out, they can usually have some money to give to that person, but it goes on and on until something completely falls apart. But usually it can happen after a lot of people lose money. So it can be very concerning. So you definitely don't want anyone in the financial world to be this. And this is really concerning to me for Wall Street right now, because I believe the Wall Street, there was a Supreme Court decision. I'm not trying to talk politics, but just to say there was a Supreme Court decision, the Chevron doctrine, which was basically going to cut off at the knees the SEC, or Securities and Exchange Commission, which will mean there's not going to be as much oversight. At least it concerns me that will be the case for investments and whatnot. So we're now heading into the Wild West. Basically, they said only courts can do it. And when you have judges, you can get a judge. I mean, you can basically shop a judge. You know?
There's bad judges, and that's the thing.
That's
like,
the problem.
I see it in the legal system. So not everybody is ethical.
And when you get a lot of power, your narcissism goes up. No one talks about that. When you're in a situation where people start lauding you and giving you praise and giving you whatever you want, you start to believe your own sickness. You start to believe all of it and start to think, oh, I am that great. I am that special. I am grandiose. And that can actually increase narcissism, which can increase this bad behavior. So we really do need to be very much aware that this happens. And this can happen at any level and can happen all over the place. So it's important for recruiters, maybe number one, to be aware of language in job postings. Unintended consequences of using seductive language for narcissists can lead to some bad outcomes. So it's good not to use, what were those? Thinks out of the box. Ambitious. Think strategically. I tend to think strategically, but you know what? I don't think Machiavellian. And I think maybe that's what that's attracting. And larger percentage of narcissists in the applicant pool in general will lead to rule-bending employees. So be careful. That's the bottom line. Okay, and now the one, Taylor Swift is good for your body image. This is really kind of a cool study, I have to say, because I'm not a big Taylor Swift fan. So I was really interested in this particular research I found from the University of Vermont. It was published in Social Science and Medicine. And it was a study about Taylor Swift and her celebrity influence on body image. And that this was actually a real thing. And Taylor Swift's transparency about her struggles with body image and disordered eating and body objectification has significantly influenced her fans. So these researchers got together from the University of Vermont, and they saw the effect of Swift's disclosure on her fan. I love the way they did this study too. They analyzed 200 top TikTok and Reddit posts. So they went onto these posts, and then they looked at over 8,300 online comments, and they reviewed them. So they basically went into, this is kind of an in vivo. They're just looking at what is, and this is archival type data. And, so they're going in and they're basically saying, basically all these people said all these things. What are they saying? And because people can say anything, and they can be rather cruel and mean on the internet. I mean, it's amazing how bad people can be. But Swift's influence on body image and eating disorders has been really impactful. In fact, these two researchers said they could do a lifetime of research and they would have less impact than just a few words from Taylor Swift. So there is an understanding that she has power. The songs that refer to disordered eating and body image pressures that she sings, she also made a movie in 2020 called Miss Americano, where she talks about her struggles. Her fans were inspired by Swift's recovery, and a lot of people, especially women who've been female fans, feel empowered to talk about their own struggles with disordered eating and their own struggles with body image issues. And this is kind of interesting because people, anything that can help them feel like they're not alone and to feel more connected to a community is going to help them mental health wise, help them seek the help they want, as well as to actually address these issues and not feel in the shadows and not feel as ashamed. Taylor Swift also has been linked to, and this was the positive impact, positive changes in behaviors and attitudes and a decreased stigma around eating disorders. But there's a challenge, and the challenge is interesting to me. Fans often continue to objectify Swift's body. You might have been watching, and they had on our YouTube, I found articles where people put side by sides of Taylor Swift where she's thin and she's heavy, where there was an article too about that she's, calling her fat cat, one asking if she's pregnant. I mean, these mixed reactions to her anti-hero video where she displayed the word fat also caused a problem, and positive comments still perpetuated harmful social norms. It's confusing. People's compliments didn't internalize the message of please do not comment on people's bodies anymore. Even me putting up pictures of her for those who are watching the YouTube video, I'm participating in that problem because in a way I'm commenting on her body. But I think I was watching a TV show last night called Absolutely Fabulous. This is a British TV show. Obviously I'm a little bit of an Anglophile. And I was watching a British TV show called Absolutely Fabulous, and it's an old show. And it was just like a dinner scene with a bunch of women, and putting down this one woman and calling her fat. The episode was her going and doing like military boot camp and restricting her eating and really doing all this stuff to get healthy. And then she rejoins the women at, I guess, maybe their, annual dinner, whatever it is. They're all, oh my God, you look great. You look great. And they're like, here, have this food, have this drink. And she said, oh, I'm a new healthy person. I'm not going to do those things. And they all piled on her. Come on, you can take it too far. Don't be so obsessed with health. You're such a problem. Just eat, you're too thin, all this stuff. And I was like, wow, she can't win. It was it was a comedy too. So, they were just kind of playing the extremes, but it was still very sad to me. And it really highlighted this very dynamic that's happening with Taylor Swift, that she can't win. No matter what her body looks like, people look at it and comment on it. And I didn't even know her body was an issue. This article actually highlighted that to me. You didn't know either.
No, I'm like, I've never seen her look overweight or unhealthy or anything.
I've never thought twice about it, but then maybe we wouldn't think about it. Have you ever thought about it, Sammy?
I mean, I've definitely seen some of these articles, kind of growing up in a society where this is very forced upon young women.
Yeah.
And especially if you look at the photos, she's not anyone I would consider near fat at all.
No.
And just the fact that people call her speculate that she's pregnant if she puts on 5 pounds is crazy.
And it's really just, it kind of tells you and what it's like to be under the heat of fame. Like that spotlight of fame and the heat of that heat lamp, they really have to endure quite a bit.
And I don't think people understand that our body fluctuates. It doesn't ever stay that one certain way unless you're constantly eating that way, doing everything a certain way. Your body's going to change with how you work with it, It's
Well, she's been in the spotlight since she was, I think, 19, and she's now either late 20s, early 30s. Do you expect her body to be a 19-year-old's body when she's a fully grown adult woman? I don't. Personally, I don't think my body's the same as when I was 19.
Incredibly good point.
None of our bodies are as we were when we were 19. That's insane.
None of ours. And especially when you turn 30, your pineal gland begins to calcify. It all starts to fall to shit at that point. I mean, it's all going. We're all just gonna, it just goes downhill from there very slowly, but it goes downhill. So we have to kind of deal with that.
It is really cool, though, that she is talking about it and is helping that demographic, of young women, because I don't think a lot of people understand that a person can look really healthy and have an eating disorder,
A person, that's a very good point.
So,
a person can
yeah.
look very healthy and have an eating disorder. Very, very, very good point. And a person can look very thin or very heavy and not have an eating disorder. And that's the kind of trippy thing. You can't look at someone's body and say what's going on for them. So you got to let them say it. But I was happy about, because Taylor Swift has a big influence on reducing stigma, but so her body is moving naturally, and I love that. There was a guy. Do you guys remember Mr. Rogers? Mr. Rogers, the Mr. Rogers Neighborhood. Did you guys ever watch that on PBS?
No, but I've heard of it.
Kids. It's still like a little kid show. It used to just scare me because it was like all these puppets. Anyway, the bottom line about Mr. Rogers, they did a documentary on him. This guy led the most rigid life. He was exactly what you said. He ate pretty much the same, did everything, exercised exactly the same all the time, had the same body weight his entire life. How is that possible? I put clothes into the closet, and the next time I get them out, they've shrunk. How does that happen? So I think she's actually reflecting a more normal person.
Yeah, and I don't it happens on social media too, where people post these pictures where they look their top best, like at their peak, shredded, or
Very good point.
But it's not always like that, It's like maybe for a photo shoot or like vacation or something, but I don't even look like that all year around, It's insane. Yeah, nobody looks like that all year round.
I found out years later that people suck their stomachs in when they take photos. I didn't know that.
Great.
Well, that's why all my photos don't look so great. Did you guys know that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm guilty.
Everybody.
I'm going through like a weight loss journey myself for the past year, and I've caught myself doing things especially online. The other day I deleted a picture because I was like, oh, I look really big in that photo, and I was like, why am I deleting this photo? Just because I look bigger. That was who I was. I'm not a different person because I'm smaller or anything. So I definitely think that everyone does that a little bit.
Good for you, DJ Sammy G. You didn't delete it, right?
No, I didn't delete it.
Good for you. Good for you. I think that's great. Yeah, we need to see differing body images. We need to see people that fluctuate. And you know what? We if you are on an intentional weight loss journey, then we need to give you a little back pat, to say good job for what you're doing. And if it's not intentional, then that's probably more of a concern.
It's very intentional.
Good. Yeah.
I'm finally going to the gym and everything. It's very healthy.
Good for you. And you guys can't see, but she's sitting here with her giant Stanley Cup. She used to have a smaller one, but now this one's gotten bigger. I bet the next one will be probably 2 stories tall.
Probably.
Yeah, it is important. Taylor Swift isn't the only celebrity to address this. I mean, a lot of people will know a famous, I think it was a Time cover back years ago, where Jamie Lee Curtis, who was in the original Halloween and has gone on to do a million things, but she did a photo shoot where she was on the cover in just her underwear, bra and panties, and she didn't have any airbrush or makeup or anything, just to show, because she's considered a very attractive woman and she had a great body. She was showing what it looks like without all the enhancements. And that blew the tops off the nation. This is back when everyone kind of read the same magazines and got the same news. And believe me, Jamie Lee Curtis, everyone was just stunned. Yeah. So, it's just oh, she's a normal person. That's great. Helen Mirren, on the other, you guys know who she is. She's an actress, British actress. I think she's 65 or something. And some photographer snapped a photo of her on the beach wearing a bikini. And you had to question if she made some kind of bargain with the devil because she had a stunning, beautiful body. Yeah, so we can all look the way we do. There's potential for celebrities to drive systematic change. I think what's great about Taylor Swift is she empowers her fans in a positive way. And so I'm a big fan of Taylor Swift, even if I don't know her music. I mean, maybe a few things, but
I'm the same way too. Yeah. I think she's a great person in general, like, great role model in that sense.
Great role model. And I'm, 100% for you, Tay. I'm on Team Swift. I'm not
You're
a Swiftie. I'm more of a Swiftor. I don't know. Swiftette. I'm like
Swiffer.
I'm Swiffer. There you go. Thank you. I clean the floor. So highlights and the limitations, their individual efforts against systemic issues. We need to understand that we all need to do different things. I wrote this really convoluted sentence. Let me interpret it. We all need to do things to help this situation, to help things. We need to encourage more weight-inclusive practices, and we need to celebrate different body sizes. And that doesn't mean people who are struggling with health-related issues. It does mean we need to be sensitive to people's where they are in their own journey with their own body and how they are in presenting themselves, and to celebrate people for who they are, which I think is a wonderful thing to do.
Oh yes. Also, Bridgerton. Do you watch it, Sammy?
No, I don't. But all of my friends want me to.
But there's the newest season. It's like the main actress. She's a bit heavier than most of the other actresses on there. And there was like something that was printed out where it's like mixed weight. That title was like about their weight with her and like her partner that she's with in the show. That it was like, that's so weird. Like, how are you even paying attention to the weight situation? It was just really bizarre for like that article to publish.
Oh, because she's heavier, they don't like the partner she's paired with. They feel like he's too good for her.
Yeah, and that's how they make it. Yeah.
That. But if we see a heavy man with an attractive woman, like you've seen in every since God knows when, no one seems to question
any
that.
Adam Sandler movie.
Yeah,
any Adam Sandler movie. Yes,
and the actress, she's stunning. She's a stunning girl, and I mean, she's got bigger breasts and that,
Oh, right on.
Yeah, but that was just
certainly an advantage.
Sometimes bigger breasts makes it look bigger. That's what I meant. Yeah. So.
Well, good for her. Well, that wraps up the show for today, folks. A reminder to like, subscribe, give us 5 stars. The links to the studies, go to my YouTube page at youtube.com/Dr. Greg. And also, if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to cover, you can hit me up on socials at Ask Dr. Greg, or go to my website, drgreg.com, fill out a contact form if you have something you want us to discuss on the show. We'd love to do it. This is Dr. Greg, Brian, and DJ Sammy G, her very last time on the show. Mm-hmm. Bye, Sammy.
Bye.
Until next time, be present, be flexible, and be kind.